Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where we gotta ask, where are the Scoob Numbers? Yes, Warner Brothers has been suspiciously quiet. Universal, when Trolls World Tour came out, the studio got all poppy, and they were excitedly touting their immediate success, both the weekend of release and then about 10 days later with more concrete numbers. In fact, Universal is so giddy and willing to mix it up with theater owners, they got into a huge fight, which is still not resolved, although it might be getting resolved right now as we speak with this lack of information about Scoob, because why aren't they sharing it? There might not be as much money here as was originally said. But anyway, I think that Universal's gung-ho attitude and saying, hey, look at how much money we've made, that contributed, I think, surely to Warner Brothers making the decision in the first place to move Scoob to digital. That was done, I think, around the 21st of April, and Trolls World Tour, of course, hit April 10th. So was Warner Brothers bamboozled, right? Was Universal wearing a rubber mask? Because where are Warner Brothers headlines? It's very weird. Scoob was #1 when it debuted, and it stayed #1 ever since, just like Trolls World Tour. And its second weekend out, it's again at #1. So you would think it would have just as much money or more, considering it's at a higher price point, because it's also available to purchase for $24.99. But speaking of doing well in the charts, someone did report their numbers this week, and that's Vertical Entertainment for Capone. Now, Capone, instead of coming out on a Friday, came out on a Tuesday, right before Scoob. And before Scoob hit, Capone was #1 for a few days and was in the top 10 for a decent chunk. Certainly, I think that's those first 10 days, Vertical Entertainment released the first 10 days amount of earnings. And it was just 2.5 million. 2.5 million. That's insane. So one movie can be #1 one week, like Trolls World Tour, and it ended up actually doing about 30 to 40 its first weekend. And yet another movie can be #1, still have that #1 spot, and just get 2.5? This is very sketchy. It was less money. I believe Capone was like maybe $15, right, to purchase. But still, it wasn't that much less money. That's very, very concerning. Capone cost $20 million to make because they had expected a theatrical release, not including the very little advertising that Vertical Entertainment gave it. But still, it's very weird. Now listen, nobody has to report their numbers, and there's no way to verify them. It's like streaming. You don't know where this information is coming from. Did maybe Capone do really well on iTunes but didn't do as well on other streaming services? That's something that has to be taken into account too. But nobody knows for sure, even when someone does release their numbers. Again, you don't know for sure that those are the actual numbers. This is a bit of a problem. Did Universal really make $95 million in its first 19 days, as it said, with Trolls World Tour? It's, by the way, still in the top 20 and still at a 48-hour rental for $19.99. So as I said, Scoob, with the higher price point and the more options, should be doing even better. So they would definitely, you think, want to share that information. Also, the other thing is that Universal could be telling the truth about their Trolls World Tour numbers, but maybe they just benefited that much from being the first theatrical release to decide to jump to digital. But is the newness factor gone that quickly? It just took one movie and people are already over it? Again, it's not like Scoob isn't #1 and Trolls World Tour was. They're both #1 movies. Capone was a #1 movie, but yet there's such varying degrees of financial return. Now, Universal is definitely the studio the most excited about shortening the theatrical window, again, because they're not only owned by a cable company, but have put their cable executives in charge of their movie and TV business. Universal will next release The King of Staten Island to premium video on demand June 12th, because they're like, we love this is our new business model, and we'll see if they're as transparent with those numbers. Because they don't have, Trolls World Tour, it does have Anna Kendrick and Justin Timberlake. They're not huge stars, certainly not reliable stars. And, Pete Davidson, what's going to push the traffic to King of Staten Island? Although I believe his Netflix special, when it came out, did very well. It'll be interesting to see who does well in the digital space. Is it a different type of actor than who does well in the more mainstream usual theatrical release? Where are the audiences? Where are the crowds? That's something we should keep an eye on as well. Now, one could argue also that Warner Brothers doesn't want to add insult to injury to theater owners. They're like, we already pulled Scoob from theatrical release. We're not going to go brag about how much money we're making. We're just going to take it and run. That seems ridiculous though, because considering that we're in the middle of a pandemic, and Variety just did a poll that said 70%, these polls are tough though. I mean, they only do like a sample polling. They didn't ask everybody. But based on their scientific poll, 70% of moviegoers said they would rather watch new movies from home during this time. So how these movies are doing in digital release is kind of important to the industry. They better find a way to get a real look at these numbers, or else everyone's going to be flying blind. I guess, in Hollywood it is a studio eats studio business with Disney and Fox literally, but I think they should help each other out a little bit here because this is a really difficult situation. Now, thankfully, box office numbers do still have to be reported, and they are verifiable. And right now, 179 theaters in the U.S. are open, out of approximately 5,800. A long ways to go. I think those are mostly small independent theaters that are willing to take the risk, both financially and legally. And while the media is able to post pictures that make it look like everyone can't wait for things to get back to normal, is that just clickbait? Because Disney Springs, Disney's shopping complex in Orlando, opened up its non-Disney stores, a significant amount of the retail there and the restaurants, on Wednesday. And it's a ghost town. Not that many people are showing up. And by the way, the people who do show up, a lot of them don't keep their masks on. So it's not really being effectively enforced. Americans might be eager to go to the park or the beach or to eat it outdoors at a restaurant where they feel they're basically outside and there's lots of circulation, but it remains to be seen if they will go to a movie theater. We're just not going to know until they open up. So God bless you, Warner Brothers, again. Boy, Warner Brothers is like, maybe we aren't the hero. Maybe we're taking all the hits for everybody. Sometimes the canary in the coal mine dies, and they're like, oh, it's not right. We can't go in there. It doesn't always chirp, come on in. So Tenet, of course, debuted a new trailer Thursday night. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to open July 17th, but it means it's opening soon. Everybody feels either July or it'll take Wonder Woman's mid-August date. Now, so far, it has 4.6 million views. That's very low for the first major new trailer to come out in 3 months. I mean, you would think that alone would generate interest. The first trailer for Tenet has 20 million views. Is Tenet itself just not appealing to moviegoers? We still have no idea what the movie's about. John David Washington and Robert Pattinson are not big stars. I mean, it looks a lot like Inception, but Inception starred, of course, Leonardo DiCaprio, which is, he's still one of the only draws left, and John David's father, Denzel Washington. And also, maybe the situation, though, is that moviegoers feel, I'm not going back to the movies anytime soon, so I'm not much interested in a trailer for something that I can't go and see. Although, to be fair, sometimes movies do just bleed interest in terms of their trailers. The Black Widow teaser has 42 million views on YouTube, but the final trailer, just 15. Still, I would be nervous if I were Warner Brothers, because 15 million views is a lot more than 4.6. They've both been out, Black Widow, that's in entirety, it's been out much longer, but, I don't think Tenet's going to triple its viewership in a month for this latest trailer. It's concerning. If Tenet, Mulan, and Wonder Woman 1984 don't do as well as expected in theaters, Hollywood will have to revisit the idea of premium video-on-demand releases. Or, as I've said before, releasing them theatrically, but then significantly shortening the theatrical window to just 2 to 4 weeks. That would be 14 to 30 days versus the 74 days for digital, 90 days for physical that it currently exists right now. But I have to say, with the silence on Scoob, I think there should be a real concern in Hollywood that there is not that much money in premium video on demand as expected. And, it would be tremendous losses on these movies to do this, but then what does the studio do? Do they just sit on them for a year? Will they lose interest anyway? Are these movies just casualties of the pandemic? I'm curious how you feel about it. What would you do if you were the studio? Meanwhile, Disney continues to think outside the box when it comes to surviving the coronavirus pandemic. Not only are they continuing to push their new streaming service, Disney Plus, although it will operate at a loss for about 5 years still, but they've entered talks now with the NBA to have the 2020 postponed season finally take place and held entirely at Disney's ESPN Wide World of Sports complex down in Orlando. All the teams would play, practice, and live on site instead of having those games across the country, with home and away games. No word on if fans could attend, but Las Vegas for some reason wants it as well. I don't know what the benefit would be to a city. like Las Vegas, if fans weren't able to go to the games. But, Disney obviously would love it because they could promote their Wide World of Sports complex and continue to promote the ESPN brand everywhere. It would be everywhere. But speaking of ESPN, Disney's ESPN and Turner's TBS already have NBA streaming, national media rights. They're already locked up for $2.6 billion per year. And so they would like their 2020 money's worth back, or at least as much back as they can get. So yeah, Disney would love that. Love to be able to promote their Wide World of Sports complex, and also it would be nice to have something to air on ESPN again. The Last Dance is unfortunately over, and I don't know, I'm not quite sure when this Tom Brady new documentary is coming. But no offense to Vegas, I think that the Disney World complex is the perfect thing for this. I think it's a great idea. It's got great branding everywhere that fits with where the games will be airing. And I've actually, as you know, as a big Disney World fan, I go down there all the time. I've actually visited that complex because I wanted to check it out, and it's very, very nice. I think that would be a great place not only for to air it, but I think it would be a nice experience for the players and the teams. All right, so what are people streaming this week? Over on iTunes, yes, Scoob is still #1, but what's it worth? We don't know. Well, Universal, speaking of Universal, finally found the right price point for Emma as it soared higher than it's ever soared before to #2, and that's a $5.99 rental. Jumanji, wow, what a marathon runner. This thing just keeps not only going, but rising up. It's really ups and downs, but I'm impressed that it keeps coming back up. Not only does it speak to the quality of the film, but Sony's ability to offer sales here and there to keep regenerating interest. Plus a couple of war movies, as you can see, are in the top 10 and top 20, thanks to iTunes' Memorial Day weekend sale. Also, The Trip to Greece just made it into the top 20. It debuted digitally. It's a popular UK television series, which usually debuts theatrically here in the US, and this is the 4th and supposedly maybe final trip. Over on Disney Plus, we got a new Disney Plus original in the top 10. But it ain't pop culture, it ain't even Disney Gallery The Mandalorian. Why is that not in the top? Why is that not trending on Disney Plus? I think it's because it's more like a, let's just talk about the Mandalorian series than they actually show you anything. Interestingly enough, this week's episode does show you stuff, but I think people might already be checked out. But Zenimation made it into the top 10. Isn't that exciting? These are approximately 5-minute shorts. This is funny to me because I've been trying to get, actually for the first time ever, relaxation apps. Because, I think we're all under a lot of stress. And so I think it's interesting that Disney got in on that, and it turned out fantastic for them. Again, these are 5-minute shorts that re-edit Disney animation and take out the dialogue and the music and just have like the sound effects. And they focus on themes like water. The water one, I have to say, was quite charming. And they allow you to relax, and it popped into the top 10. It's just nice to see some Disney original that isn't Star Wars, although not all the Star Wars ones are in there anymore, do well. Then on Netflix, while Extraction and The Wrong Missy, 2 Netflix original movies, both debuted at #1 their first week of release, The Lovebirds was only able to get up to #3. I think that's unfortunate. I don't know if it speaks to the lack of star power, but I would think that Kumail Nanjiani and Issa Rae are as big names as David Spade, right? Although Adam Sandler seems to really understand the Netflix audience. But anyway, #3, at least it's in the top 10, at least it's in the top 5. But it's no match for series Sweet Magnolias and also Avatar The Last Airbender, which just debuted on the streaming service as they get ready for their live-action series. Although, I don't know why you'd have everybody rewatch a story that you're going to retell shortly in live action. I think it's ridiculous that the Netflix series is not a new story, but we'll see how it works out for them. As for what's coming up this week, slim pickings. So The Hunt is really the only movie that becomes available for purchase. It's been available for that 48-hour rental for a long time now. It was one of the first movies, and it's the last of the Universal movies that they released to be finally available for purchase. It's not bad, as I said in my review. I think it has some very interesting elements, and Betty Gilpin's fantastic. I'm getting kind of tired of hate, though. I mean, what are they going to make next? A movie about people not wanting to wear a mask? I laugh, but they made this movie, so maybe they will. I'm kind of lost it with people not getting along. It's ridiculous. HBO Max, of course, launches on Wednesday with their slate of originals. And then on Friday, Hulu will debut Rami Season 2. What's Rami? Well, remember at the Golden Globes this year? It seems like so long ago. But remember at the Golden Globes when this guy came out of nowhere and won Best Actor in a Comedy? And he was like, I know that none of you know who I am. Well, this is him. It's Rami, and this is his series, and its second season is debuting. Then over on Apple TV, Josh Gad's animated Central Park will debut, and probably no one will watch it because no one has Apple TV. And then, of course, Netflix will drop Space Force. Will it be their new Office? I'm watching it right now. I have my screeners, and the embargo lifts at 3 a.m. Monday night, so technically Tuesday morning. I'm excited to talk to you about it. All right, so that's this week's Movie Math. What are you watching? What do you plan to watch? What do you think about the movie theater situation, and do you think Scoob made any money? I don't see how it could have made money and they wouldn't talk about it. So I think it's very alarming. Their silence is very alarming. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.